Netflix's live adaptation of Avatar The Last Airbender is ham fisted with fundamental misunderstandings of the original that gnaw at my core. I'll break down the misinterpretation of these values one by one. In this video, we'll be focusing on Bumi, the king of Omashu. We're going to break it down into these categories: long lost friends, the challenges, and the muscle. Long lost friends. I find the scene where Aang prematurely recognizes Bumi incredibly distasteful. Bumi outright gives himself away at the very start of their face-to-face meeting by chipping in that Aang is not only the Avatar, but very, very good at rock skipping, accompanied by the laugh snort that he's known for. Yet, at the same time, when Aang catches on and moves to embrace Bumi, he's not only held back by Bumi's guards, but Bumi makes a weird put-off face and doesn't allow Aang to hug him, the guards continuing to hold him captive. From there on, Bumi's behavior is outright that of a jerk. He bullies and antagonizes Aang for not only something that was out of his control, but something he's deeply scarred by. None of this is in a way that comes off with the intention to bring out the best in Aang, but instead sheds resentment that Bumi's been apparently building up for the past 100 years. It's such a bastardization of Bumi's character, who in the cartoon preaches to Aang the importance of patience and waiting for the right moment to strike as one of the core values of an earthbender. And this is to the point he'd allow himself to be captured by Azula and let Omashu get seized in order to wait for that right moment himself to make a move. And also, the moment in the cartoon when Aang realizes who Bumi is, the two embrace in a tight hug. There's no spite or hint of resentment. When Sokka calls Bumi out on this, saying this very interesting line, "Why did you do all of this instead of just telling Aang who you were?" Bumi explains that Aang carries a large responsibility and that he has to think like a mad genius to be able to pull it off, as well as have the help of his friends, something that is vehemently thrown into Aang's face as something he should not have in the live-action adaptation, which is very annoying. Aang, you have a difficult task ahead of you. The world's changed in the 100 years since you've been gone. It's the duty of the Avatar to restore balance to the world by defeating Fire Lord Ozai. You have much to learn. You must master the 4 elements and confront the Fire Lord. And when you do, I hope you'll think like a mad genius. And it looks like you're in good hands. You'll need your friends to help you defeat the Fire Nation. Also, did we forget about the 85 Jings? Positive Jing when attacking, negative Jing when retreating, and neutral Jing when you do nothing. According to Bumi in the cartoon, the 3rd Jing is the key to earthbending. It involves listening and waiting for the right moment to strike. To me, this is saying that Bumi could understand why Aang waited 100 years, though not by specific choice, in the ice, and it's also why I don't think he would hold against him for it as a negative thing. The challenges. In the live-action adaptation, Bumi's challenges come off as spiteful rather than helpful. In the cartoon, the challenges were centered around encouraging Aang to not go about things head-on and to think outside the box. To quote Aang from the cartoon after completing the challenges, "Everything was different than I expected. They weren't straightforward. To solve these tests, I had to think differently than I usually would." This is very different from the live adaptation. In the live adaptation, the first dangerous challenge that Aang goes through is a play on the candy rock crystal problem from the cartoon. The rock candy grows rapidly fast. Aang's first response is used as bending to destroy it, but it grows back much bigger and completely covers the room. So you may think, all right, there must be some roundabout way to go about this challenge to solve the puzzle. Maybe Aang needs to use his airbending to bounce between the walls to not touch the floor? No? You mean Aang just uses the same move again and it works and the challenge is over? Oh, okay. So Bumi really just did want rock candy and nearly spiked Aang to the heart for it. Cool. Really takes the bite out of Bumi's diss that he sends seconds later, saying that Aang just wants to goof off and it's all about games. When Aang himself brings up that none of the challenges make sense, Bumi's response and answer is this: Nothing's made sense in 100 years. Again, spiteful as can be and impatient. Yes, I realize 100 years is a long time to wait, but if you put a cap on patience, that kind of ruins the point. Bumi then also says, it's more fun to goof off, am I right? Okay, yes, Aang in the cartoon is known for goofing off, but in the live action adaptation, Aang is mostly running from point A to B to C trying to get this Avatar stuff taken care of. So what is Bumi referring to? The fact that Aang was trapped in a ball of ice for 100 years? Is that what we're referring to as goofing off? It's so narrow-minded, and I know I've said it 10 times already, but it's so heavily spiteful. The muscle. Let's not forget that Bumi is supposed to be jacked. He's depicted with a large hump, which is later revealed to be masking how muscular he is once he stands up straight. I remember watching it for the first time and being reminded of Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. I did not get that vibe from the live action to any degree. When he takes off the coat, there's no reveal. I mean, sure, it's not an old, like, decrepit old man body that's just withered away underneath. It's just a normal human looking body, not the body of a hardened earthbending king that's got hella sick moves that involve incredible feats of inhuman strength. Speaking of which, remember when Bumi pulls off that really cool move after his fight with Aang in the cartoon? He just free falls backwards and disappears into the dirt. I was waiting for this to show up, especially when they had the giant rock hovering above Bumi. It would have been the perfect opportunity to have Bumi appear to be crushed when in reality he dropped to the dirt and tunneled under. It would have been a great example of why Aang would need to not just make hard decisions, but think outside the box to be sure his enemies were defeated. But no, the fight was boring AF. It consisted of throwing rocks, using rocks as shield, dodging rocks, and throwing rocks. The most interesting part of the battle was the use of sand bidding to sink Aang partly into the ground, but he easily airbends his way out of this immediately, so it wasn't that much of a move at all. It ends with Bumi whining about the hardships of being a king, but that's your job? He's treating Aang as no different from the firebenders themselves that are actively attacking innocent people and taking over their homes. Let's not forget Aang is a 12-year-old boy who only just found out he was the Avatar right before shit went down. It's not like he trained as the Avatar for years up until the point the Fire Nation made their big move and then he ran away in the night and then all this happened. It's just silly as hell to think to me that Bumi is this goddamn spiteful at a dubious child who is clearly making an effort now that he's, free from ice hell. Bumi later says in a live adaptation, "You didn't do it on your own, so you didn't learn anything at all." Again, let's compare this to the cartoon. I hope you'll think like a mad genius. It looks like you're in good hands. You'll need your friends to help you defeat the Fire Nation. Let's also compare this to the line said by the childhood version of Bumi in the cartoon. Instead of seeing what they want you to see, you gotta open your brain to the possibilities. And that's my presentation on why Bumi was fundamentally misunderstood in Netflix's live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I have other gripes about many other details pertaining to the series, but I'll tackle them one at a time to keep things brief and organized, as well as a video on what I did like about the series and what I thought were actually good things that they did. Stay tuned, like and subscribe to follow for more content.